Hello, everyone, and welcome to High School Sports Saturday on Sports Radio 105.5 WEEI. I am Jim Pignatiello, and I am joined by Tom King. Say hi, Tom.
Hey.
Jack Flagler. Say hi, Jack.
How's it going?
And we are all from MassLive.com. We're going to be joined in just a little bit by some members of the three-time state champion Frontier Regional Girls Volleyball team. We'll have Coach MacDonald in the studio, as well as Sarah Woodward and Emily Woodward, a pair of all-state players and sisters. And, pretty good volleyball players, if I do say so myself. But first, we want to get to football state semifinals, which was, unfortunately, the end of the state tournament for Western Mass football. Tom, not a good Saturday. Some great games, but not a good Saturday outcome-wise for Western Mass.
Three close games that could have gone either way, but either way you look at it, 0 for 4 for Western Mass, and no team going to Gillette Stadium, unfortunately.
It is too bad, and you hope that it's not kind of the way that things are going to be, where Western Mass will feel like the little brother in this game every year. You felt like they would at least get one, and to get none that's a pretty tough pill to swallow to start things off here.
Yeah, especially, this year seems like one of the stronger years for Western Mass candidates to get, if they're going to get to the state finals with Central and Hoosick and Wacona. You thought at least maybe one or perhaps two would get there. It was such strong seasons.
Yeah, if you get an undefeated Berkshire team, you feel like that's going to be a pretty special team with a chance. And, they had one. They were in
right
control.
there.
We'll talk about that. And then, of course, Central, which, a team that we've talked a lot about already, and a team that, we really thought, had a chance to make a pretty special run. And they did, but, ran into a really great St. John Shrewsbury team. And let's talk about that game. That was kind of the gold standard game starting off. The one that we were all kind of looking forward to, the matchup between Cody Williams and Drew Smiley at quarterbacks. And, lived up to the billing, right? Lived up to the hype.
Oh, it was an absolutely great game. It seemed like if they weren't, there was a couple turnovers, but other than that, just really well-played game. The two offenses going at it. Central had a really good second half defensively. They gave up, 24 points in the first half?
Right.
Over 300 yards, but they really buckled down in the second half defensively, and they took the lead early in the fourth quarter, and they couldn't hold on to it. They had that tough fumble, and then coming down the stretch, it's tougher way. I can't think of a tougher way to lose a game than the way they did.
No, it's true, and it did feel for almost the entire first half and even into the start of the third quarter that St. John's was in control, but there were a couple of times where the defense had to come through and did, either forced a turnover, got a stop, and they really seemed to adjust well to both the speed and of the St. John's offense, the tempo. I don't think we've seen any team that play at that sort of tempo. They were snapping the ball every 8 seconds or so. It was really impressive. Yeah,
they play faster than even Central does, and Central's probably plays at the highest tempo of all the Western Mass teams. So it was definitely an adjustment for that Central defense. They like to rotate their defensive line a lot. They weren't able to do it as much. They had to get off the field a little quicker. They tired in the first half, it seemed. But then in the second half, they kind of figured out that read option against the run. Smiley still had a great game through the air. And Davon Jones, we've been talking about him all week. He's a heck of a wide receiver, so he was tough to stop.
Fantastic wide receiver. We saw multiple. It turned into an argument in the press box at the end of the game of which of all these amazing catches was, how do you rank them and which one was the best? We all were disagreeing because there were so many great ones.
It was like deja vu. Central has the short cornerbacks, and Smiley just kept throwing up those jump balls, and he went up and got him. He's got some great leading ability and some strong hands for a wide receiver.
And it was the final was 37-32. We had a chance at a really unbelievable finish where Central had the ball, they were driving, and had a shot at an open receiver, and just could not pull in the ball. And then Smiley, who was in especially on defense in specific moments, he didn't play a lot of defense. Yeah, comes up with the pick in the end zone to basically end it.
Yeah, and just a tough way to go. Cody Williams, Central hasn't really had too many close games. Just Everett really in the opener. But you've always felt, they could score quickly, and you always felt like you give him time in a 2-minute drill toward the end of the game that he's going to make a play, and he did. He drove them all the way down to the 14-yard line, and then threw what looked like a strike, what looked like a potential touchdown, game-winning touchdown, and the ball just bounced the wrong way, and Smiley, as you said, was playing free safety in some big moments and just came in and slid in and made the interception.
Talk about Smiley, a kid who's going to play lacrosse at Navy, which is obviously a great program for that. And he looks like that kind of kid, the big, strong, tall and wide and moves really well. It was really impressive to see a kid that size who could throw the ball the way he could and was as strong as he could, but was also pretty agile and was a really good decision maker. It was impressive to see him play.
Yeah, every time they got down to third and short, you just knew he was going to do the keeper on the read option, and Central really, especially in that first half, was not able to stop it. I was impressed. I knew he was going to be able to throw the ball, but how well he ran the ball and found his holes and knew when to hand it off and knew when to keep it.
And you do say that Central didn't get as far as they wanted to. They clearly wanted to at least get to Gillette. They wanted to be that kind of, have that pride. Didn't happen, but it took a really great team, a really great group of kids from St. John's, and in a pretty amazing game that where a couple of turnovers that come up, they got a couple of misplays and things. It's good. It was going to take that kind of game, and we've talked about it a little bit. The special teams things, especially the extra points, they left a lot of points on the board in a close game. Unfortunately,
yeah, they missed 2 extra points
and two conversions.
Two-point conversions, but they went for it because they knew they weren't going to be able to get the extra point. And I mean, throughout the season, we said the only chink in their armor was their special teams and the PAT, and it did really come back to haunt them.
So we'll talk a little bit more about Central in our final segment, where we'll break down the final rankings and the final Dagenet award watch. But let's move on to Division 4, which was another interesting game, and a couple of schools that we said were very different: an inner city Worcester school in Doherty, and then a team up from the Berkshires in Wacona. And Wacona was in control early, led 16-0, and then they gave up 22 unanswered. Another tough way to lose. I mean, you feel they had to feel like they were in control and just couldn't seal the deal.
Yeah, and a couple turnovers, which really sparked the momentum for Doherty. Like you said, they had that early lead, and it looked like they were ready to, put the pedal to the metal and head to a state final, but it didn't turn out that way.
A Wacona team that finishes 10-1 on the season, and the kind of defense that we thought would play the way they did, where they were able to give their team a chance to get rolling, but felt like couldn't have the miscues, couldn't give away. Once you're playing at this level, you just in Central saw the same thing. You just can't give the ball away too many times, or else they're going to take advantage.
Yeah, there's no margin for error when you're in a state semifinal game.
We had another good game in Division 5, and it was another Berkshire team, of course. Northbridge defeats Hoosick Valley 29-22. This is an interesting game the whole way, and we had suggested that the Hoosick defense would hopefully do enough to keep the Hoosick offense in the game, and they did. The really interesting decision late in the game. Having trailed, Hoosick scores a touchdown to make it 21-20. Northbridge with the lead with 2:36 left in the game, and Hoosick decides to go for 2. They had a kicker that had made 2 extra points. It wasn't worried about the kicker. It was about
not at all. Ian Hill's one of the best kickers right in Western Mass. So
2:36 left. They go for 2 and get it. And you really have to appreciate that you're saying this is probably our best chance to score. We got one shot from the conversion line, and 2, we feel like our defense is good enough to hold them. Well, in the end, it wasn't. Northbridge's offense is always fantastic, and it is again this year. But you really had to appreciate the gumption of the coaching staff to make that kind of call, and then the kids to. I mean, it's like going to the line with a free throw to win it, or to come through that way.
Takes a lot of guts to go for it there. I mean. But like you said, they had nothing to lose. They felt that was their best chance to take the lead, and they thought their defense might be able to hold on, but it didn't turn out that way. But what a great call!
Yeah, and it gives the kids so much. I mean, I know it didn't turn out that way because they went out and gave a touchdown, but when you make a play like that and take the lead, it gives the kids so much momentum and so much energy going into the end of the game. You kick an extra point and tie it. It's an apostrophe sort of. It's just a play that happens after a touchdown, but you get that 2-point conversion. All of a sudden, you have, the momentum of the game going in your favor. And again, I know it didn't turn out that way for him, but just to get a swing like that, to take the lead late in the game, it's a great call by the coaching staff.
You have to appreciate that because it's so easy to make the call that is not easy to criticize, right? I mean, if they kick the extra point, we tied it, but then we lost. But you make the decision. You say, right here is our best chance. I know that if we don't get it, I'm gonna hear about it. I'm gonna take a lot of heat, but I firmly believe this is our best chance to win. And whether they got it or not, I mean, it's a great decision. One you don't see a lot, but really impressive.
I wish you'd see more of it.
I agree.
Agreed.
I mean, it's a high percentage play for the most part, especially when they have a strong offensive line. They got some tough running backs, Ty Mack, Ian Hill. So I mean, you figure. More likely than not, they're going to get the 2-point conversion there.
And of course, having a good defense, you do have faith that if you get it, you're okay.
I think it comes down to what you were saying, Jim. I just think you can kick an extra point and it's easy, or you can sort of put the onus on the coach, and the coach is saying, I'm sort of taking this game into my hands here by going for 2, and that will bring some heat when it doesn't work out. Probably works out as many times as it won't,
Sure.
In the end, I'm not sure it would make that much of a difference, but it's definitely added heat on the coach to make a big call like that. And I think that's part of the reason you don't see it as much. It's just coaches who are risk averse.
I don't think they bargained for Kobe Chauffeur a last-minute drive there, though. That kid is he's
sophomore quarterback, man.
Yeah.
They grow them out in Northbridge, I think. But and it was kind of like the drive that Central couldn't quite seal, right? That they marched down with a couple minutes left and they scored with 30 seconds left to win it. On a 25-yard pass and just talk about as a sophomore coming through there. It's going to be exciting, even as being Western Mass people and being aware of him though, and seeing him what he does in the Super Bowl this week, but to follow along in the next couple of years in that Northbridge offense, just impressive out of a sophomore quarterback.
Certainly the pressure didn't faze him at all as a young quarterback playing in a big game
against the defense that we've talked about all year as being just brutally tough. So really impressive, especially on that front. Then we have a different game. The Turners Falls Littleton game was the one that was not as competitive. I think even the people from Turners Falls would admit that. The final score was Littleton won 52-26. And first about the just general thing, Littleton was amazingly good. That was a team that would have beaten a lot of much higher division teams that we've seen this year, Tom.
I'd go so far as to say they might be the second best team in all of Western Mass if they played. I think aside from Central, they could compete or beat anybody else.
I mean, they did everything that you'd want them to do. They could run multiple sets. They gave you a bunch of different looks. They could play fast. They were playing slow.
Very well coached.
We were seeing just incredibly well coached. A line that was huge for Division 6, and they had depth. We looked at the roster coming in, and I think Turners Falls has had a little bit of attrition, but I think they had like 22 or 23 people on the roster and 9 freshmen, whereas Littleton had like 45 or 46 and a handful of freshmen. Yeah. It was that was a big team for a quote-unquote small school.
Right. Well, I mean, you just looked at the sidelines before the game, and you knew, Turners Falls was in for a tough game. They had about, I think, as you pointed out at the game, I think there was more reporters on the sidelines for Turners Falls than there were substitutes.
Well, those Franklin County reporters do like to walk the sidelines.
Yes, they do.
So.
And then you look over at Littleton, I mean, they had about 45 or 50 guys that were on the sidelines waiting for their turn. And some kids who came in the second half when they pulled some of their starters and put up some big yardage.
So an impressive year for Turners Falls. Comes in as the 4 seed, overcomes some injuries, gets some guys back, and wins a Western Mass title. It was not a competitive game. It was really out of reach before halftime. An interesting thing that did happen, and kind of want to bring up just real quickly, was Littleton had their second team in the entire second half. About 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they're driving again, and you're potentially going to go up to about 59 if they score 58, 59, or 60, depending on what they do with the extra point. Take a knee instead 4 times inside the 20.
Inside the 10, actually. They got it first and goal at like the 7 or 8 yard line, and then they just took 4 knees.
And handed it right back over. And, we were kind of debating. It's funny because, we have these discussions in the press box. Is this good sportsmanship? Would you rather, if you were on the losing side, just keep playing? What would you want to do? And, of course, it turns out that Turner's offense gets going. And Malcolm Smith made a couple of nice throws, and Turner scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then kicks an onside kick, and then recovers, and then Turner scores another touchdown. And so you start to kind of, and Tom, you talked to both coaches afterwards, and I think they both, there's these unwritten rules, and if we don't all agree, or if coaches don't all agree, and the kids don't all agree on what unwritten rules are, it becomes this weird gray area, right? Because I think both coaches wanted to do the right thing for both teams, but I think they both saw it differently, right?
It's one of those things where you might think you're doing the right thing sportsmanship-wise, but it all depends on what the other coach is thinking and how they take it. I mean, I know the Turners Falls coach, he understood why Littleton did that. They were trying to take time off the clock. They were trying not to embarrass the Turners Falls team. But Coach LaPointe, he felt that it was almost even more embarrassing, more humiliating for them to take the knee as if that's the only way that Turners Falls could stop them. And kind of like, we're giving up a little pity knee. And then the Littleton coach at the end seemed a little upset that they had Turners Falls had done the onside kicks late in that game after he had already, kind of...
The general point is usually that once the losing team kind of quote unquote gives in, like in basketball, once you sub out and you put your younger kids in, that's when we'll stop pressing or something like that. But that wasn't what Littleton said. We're done, and Turner Falls was like, no, we're still playing as hard as we can.
And it's your last game. It's their state semifinal game. You got to go out playing your hardest, playing the kids that brought you there. I mean, even though they didn't. It wasn't the greatest game. It was still fun to watch Malcolm Smith and Jalen Sanders have some, big touchdown, connections, and you got to go out fighting your hardest if you're a losing team.
Absolutely. If you're a senior on that Turners Falls team, you have no obligation. This is a huge stage. You're playing in the championship game. You have no obligation to stop playing. That's a massive game for your career, and you want to keep fighting until the last minute. So, if my coach came over to me as a senior or junior, playing on that stage, who knows when you get that chance again. I wouldn't want to stop playing. I would want to go until the final minute. So I think, for the players on that team, the coach has the obligation to let them fight it out no matter what the other side does. And I understand where Littleton is coming from and not wanting to run up the score, but I'm sort of with you, Tom, in that if I'm the losing team, I want you to keep playing the game. Yes, take out your starting quarterback, take out your starting running back, but I don't want you to, just stop the game before the final whistle.
Littleton had actually basically emptied their bench in this, and right after halftime, they went to like the double
Changed
wing
offense,
tee, and just kind of ran the ball the whole time.
Yeah.
And
That's
their
fine.
line was so good, and they were such a talented team that their second stringers were legitimately good, and that's what happens.
And at the same time, they're trying to protect their players for the state championship game, so they want.
That was a smart thing to do,
right?
For them, sure.
As much as it is a good sportsmanship, they're just trying to keep their players healthy at the same time.
All right, where we are it is officially time for us to take a break. We're going to pay some bills, and we're going to come right back, and we'll have our spotlight segment. We're going to be joined by members of the Frontier Regional Volleyball team, not 1-time state champs, guys, not 2, but 3 times defending state champs. That's my LeBron James. But we will be right back here on High School Sports Saturday on Sports Radio 105.5 WEEI. And welcome back to High School Sports Saturday here on 105.5 WEEI. Jack Flagler and Jim Pignatiello are here, and we are joined by from Frontier Girls Volleyball, Coach Sean MacDonald, Senior Sarah Woodward, and Sophomore Emily Woodward. A couple of all-state players, a couple of another pair of sisters at the Frontier volleyball program. And I did this before, but when you can do LeBron, you have to do LeBron. So not 1-time state champions, not 2-time defending state champions, 3-time defending state champions. Congratulations to you guys. Thank you for joining us. So, the first part, when you are Frontier Volleyball and you come into the season, there is much higher expectations than most programs, right? And I'll start with Sarah as the senior. Coming in preseason and things, do you guys start are you already talking about higher expectations than maybe some other teams are talking about in the preseason?
Yeah, usually, actually, the first day of official practice, we kind of lay down our 3 goals, and normally they're league, Western Mass, and then states. And then this year, when we said that those were our 3 goals again, there was a little bit of, usually people are like, okay, we got this, we can do it. And this year it's kind of like, well, we lost so many people. It's going to take a lot more work, but I think everyone's up for the challenge. So.
Sean, this year more than maybe in some of your past special teams that went on to win these championships, was it as much? Was there more of a concern about making them believe that they can do what they could do?
I think there was some doubt. What should our goals be? How good can we expect to be realistically? I think that going forward, no one wants to be that team that wants to lower their expectations. They say, there's teams out there that they would like to make the playoffs and they would like to win a playoff game. And if my team came in and said, we'd like to just qualify and then maybe win our quarterfinal game, I'd say go back and think about that again. But, this year, they kind of, when they say we want to win the state championship, you're going to kind of reassess, like, well, we just lost the Gatorade Player of the Year. We lost 3 All-State players. We lost this. We lost that. Do you really know what that means? And, they were, I got to give them that. They were serious about it, and they were very dedicated and put in the work to do it.
Emily, as a younger player on the team, I guess you get a sense of the history and the tradition, and you have an older sister who had played before. But in the last 2 years, as a younger player, did you know coming into this program, about what the expectations were and what would happen, or did that kind of come later when, you started playing and getting into it with this program?
Well, when I started volleyball, I really had no idea how good the program was until I got pulled up to varsity my freshman year, or no, my 8th grade year, right? Yep. And but as I've been on it, I realized that it's a lot of tradition here, and it's a lot of hard work that goes into it. That's what makes the program so good, and I just wanted to help continue it. So,
did it feel a little bit like you guys were a little underestimated though this year? As far as I think any team when you lose the kind of class that you guys graduated, right? There is some sense of maybe that's that. So was there this sense of maybe having a little chip on your shoulder as well as the other stuff that comes along with it?
I'll start
Sure.
with that. They're going to tell
They're
you.
Nodding,
about,
so.
No, they're going to tell you about what they went through in school every day. But I think, there was a lot of doubt. There was doubt inside the gym and outside the gym of what we do. I think there was more outside the gym.
Sure.
And, you would hear you would hear through the grapevine, that the talk out there is it's going to be really nice to see 2 different teams in the Western Mass Finals this year, and that is they don't think that Frontier can win without a Stankowski of
Sure.
either first name, and is Sean that good of a coach? He's just had really good players all this time, So I'm hearing it, they're hearing it. So for me, it was really sweet to have this team with no superstars or transfer students or anything else that could be an asterisk. That they went out and they did this on their own. There's no superstar. There's just a bunch of girls that were working really hard, working together.
Sarah, what was the whole kind of process like for you as far as, did you get that sense? Did you hear that sort of stuff as well?
I think from the day after we won the States last year, only thing we heard was, well, you guys are going to be lucky to make Western Mass next year. And I think that put a lot of doubt in like my teammates and my head and everything. But I think in the end, the only thing that actually mattered was making sure that we didn't doubt ourselves. So we kind of pushed everyone else's thoughts out and made sure that we didn't underestimate ourselves, because in the end, that's what helped us win.
Emily, you guys are in slightly different situations. Sarah, you're a senior. It's your last chance. You want to kind of continue the situation. Emily, as a sophomore, I know you did play a good amount as a freshman, but do you feel kind of pressure on yourself, A, as kind of having more of a role, and B, that you have a senior class and you don't want to you want to help them continue this on their way out as well too, especially since one of them is your sister.
Yeah, I did feel a lot of pressure, like same with I think a lot of people on my team, but I think at one point in the season everybody was just kind of like, we need to put that pressure away and just play our game, because I know it was my sister's senior year and it was my last time playing with her, so I obviously wanted to have her go out with a bang. And so I think that we all felt a little pressure, and so but we just at one point tried to put that away and just tried to play.
You guys played in such a tough league throughout the regular season. You had 2 Western Mass champions right there in that league. Did that, talking about that doubt, did going through those really tough matches against teams like Minnetonka and Longmeadow, did that help you, overcome challenges when you got to the playoffs, or did it further the doubt, or how did that work as you went up against such a tough schedule this year?
I think our schedule was great. I mean, we're in the right league. We didn't win the league this year. We came in second. Minnetonka played great the 2 times that we played them. But, when you go back to the pressure, there was a ton of pressure on these guys. You just don't walk onto this team and, there's banners with a year every year up on, we won the league 10 years in a row. Nobody wants to be the one that messes up that streak.
And this was 9 Western Mass, is that right?
9 Western
Nine
Mass.
Western Mass, right.
Yeah, 4 in a row state and
Right.
6 total state. So, there's a lot of pressure, whether they think it should be or not. I'm trying to, guys, let's just play. Don't think about, this many streaks or this many, 149 wins against Western Mass teams and this many league championships in a row. So let's just work on getting better today and play. But back to the schedule, I think that, our league schedule and the independent schedule that we put together, our record does not look as stellar as it has in the past, with 4 losses, which that's a lot for us. It sounds bad, but it is. And I think that when we got to the Division III playoffs, we were very prepared for that. And the girls would probably agree.
Now, Sean, you have partially probably because of the league situation before this year, but also just because of the quality of the teams that you've had, you have kind of made it an effort to play some of the best teams in the state and traveling to tough places to play and things. And you had that on top of a tougher league schedule, an improved Minnetonka team, and things
Yes.
like that. So, did it feel like, as far as kind of preparation wise, that you couldn't have had a team that was kind of better prepared as you guys went into the postseason?
Well, I think our schedule is about as tough as it's going to be without a team named Barnstable on it.
Right.
So we didn't play them this year, but we played Medfield. We played Notre Dame. Notre Dame was the Division II state champs. We played Hopkinton. They're a very good Division II team. I feel like most of our matches were against Division II opponents, and we got roughed up a little bit. We learned stuff from each one of those. After we lost to Medfield, we got better, and we played a much better Notre Dame team. And even though we lost, we took something away from that. We took something away from the 2 Minnetonka losses. So I think it was good for us that it's motivating, that we've had some things in the past where if you don't play well, you still win. And now it's like you don't play well, they make you pay. And I like that. I think that's the way it should be.
I think I called you guys the 3-time defending state champions. Of course, you were the 3-time defending state champions and properly defended your title. I think I said 3-time. I meant, of course, now 4-time. Sometimes you get stuck on a number and then you realize that the team won again, and that happens. So, playing as sisters and that sort of thing, what is that dynamic like? Do you guys get competitive with each other, or is it like do you go home and is there arguments and fights? We'll start with Emily, since she could talk about whether or not her older sister is being mean to her. But so what is it like kind of going home and being teammates on a team that's this competitive and has that kind of expectations night in and night out?
Well, I think that playing on a team with her has definitely made us closer. I love playing on a team with her. I think it would have been different if we were like both outside hitters or something. It would have been way more competitive. But that I set her during a game, and we obviously have a lot of chemistry on the court because we're sisters. I think it just made us a lot closer as sisters, and yeah. So
Sarah, are you at dinner going you are not setting me enough? Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Oh, yeah. See, it comes out now. It's okay now. She's great. She's done. She's moving on. But I mean, do you have that? Do you have those conversations? And is it hard to kind of remind yourself that, let's wait until practice, and then I'll give her, give her a talking to or that sort of thing instead of at the dinner table?
I mean, honestly, during the volleyball season, we really only talk about volleyball, to be completely honest.
Sean would expect nothing else. No, I'm kidding.
It really is everything.
Go home and relax.
But I don't think surprisingly, there isn't a lot of competition. I thought that there would be when she made varsity, but I don't know.
It's probably like Emily was saying, it's probably that you guys have some different jobs and that it's kind of more of a pull together kind of thing, whereas it's I'm getting more sets than you are, or, it's
I also want, because she's my sister, it's everything that she, as a senior, everything that I wanted to aim for the All-Star or Super 7 was what I aimed for. So when she got as a sophomore, instead of being jealous, I was so excited because okay, my sister's super cool and she's only a sophomore. So it's kind of instead of being competitive in the way I want to beat her, it's I want to make her better. So she's gonna be scary when she's a senior. But
I think their positions complement each other instead of compete with each other as well.
And now, once you get to you get through Western Mass and continue that on, was there any kind of sense of that this was enough, or were you guys properly focused on the continuation to a 4th title? I mean, because getting the Western Mass title, at least you've continued that streak, right? And not every team has won the state title. So was there any sense of accomplishment at that point, or were you guys able to focus right away and kind of continue on?
If I may first.
Sure, Sean,
okay.
Sean first.
If I may. Having been there for all of them, these guys haven't been there for all.
No, sure.
We won, it was 9 in a row, which is a lot. And people ask me, does it get old? And it doesn't get old for me because we're bringing a new team there every year. But after the match, you're talking to the press, picking up everything. Those guys have been on the bus for a while, and they're waiting for me. And I get out there, and they are so pumped that they won that game. I get out there whoa, these guys are in it to win it. Okay, this season's not over, and this is about as excited as I've seen a team get to this step from Frontier, because usually that's the step before the semifinals and then the state finals. These guys were really excited to win that match, and I was impressed. And I just think it goes to the focus and the determination that they've had all year. But talk to the girls.
Similar feelings, or did you guys, how was that experience?
Well, my first time playing in Western Mass was my junior year, and I remember being really nervous, but just because I was actually getting to play in it. And this year, it was more of because everyone was saying we wouldn't make it this far, or we might not win, or all that stuff. So it was more pressure on are we going to win or not? So when we went out there, everyone was so pumped, and there was no guarantee for anything. So everyone was super focused and in it. So when we won that game, it kind of felt like we won states in a weird way. It was way different than winning it the other 2 years. So
now, Sean, obviously your program and Long Meadow's program are really close. I know for a long time now. And that was a program that also had a lot of question marks, and it maybe carried over even more. They were the 4th seed in their tournament and beat a Minnetonka team that everybody had trouble with. I mean, as someone who kind of, knew about their program and saw some of the things that they were able to do, were you surprised that they were able to kind of turn the tides on Minnetonka or anything like that? Or, I mean, even the girls, I mean, I know you guys know those teams too. Were you guys shocked when they pulled off that quote-unquote upset?
George is a close friend of mine, and I know a lot of the girls on the team, but yes, I was shocked.
Sure.
And I think probably George, if he was here, he would be nodding, and he said,
yes.
I just think, Minnetonka was the best team in Western Mass this year. They were better than us. Longmeadow was certainly in an adjustment year, losing Jen Hurwitz, and Amanda Tyler, and a few other key people for them. So, I laughed at George because we looked at the bracket, and he was on the half with Minnetonka,
right?
But he missed Amherst, Chicopee Comp, and a few other people. And he's like, I only got to get it together for one match. And I'm like, okay, man, but that's a big one. So I was shocked as anybody that they pulled that one off, because I just think Minnetonka at home, I would have thought that they would have took that. But it was a great year for Longmeadow. I think they showed a lot of heart.
Sarah, you said you were pretty surprised too when you saw that result.
Yeah, after Minnetonka they're a great team. Honestly, they have some really great players, and honestly, I have really good friends on both teams, but after Western Mass, we usually go back on the bus and watch Longmeadow. So it was kind of, in a weird way, it was really awesome to be able to go back and do that for Longmeadow, and I didn't realize how much it actually meant. It was kind of like a tradition in a weird way.
Sure.
But if Minnetonka had won, I would have still gone back because I have really good friends on that team. But to be able to go back and support Longmeadow again, it was really awesome, to be honest.
Sean, looking at kind of the future, I mean, Theo Epstein would have probably called this a potential bridge year coming in, with the way we were talking about expectations and things, but you guys come back and defend a title. That's 4 in a row, just to be clear. Does this change the mindset at all at this point, that the program has shown what it can do, even as you're turning over these kids whose numbers are retired now and things like that. Now you have more All-State players and stars who are going to be moving on. Does it change anything for kind of each year and how you kind of expect them to expect certain things or anything like that?
I think each year they just have to know that this doesn't magically happen. That you just don't put the jersey on that says Frontier on your back and all of a sudden you play awesome. That it takes a lot of work. I think we are set up well for the future. We've got a lot of great kids coming up, younger kids and kids that didn't really see a lot of playing time in the last few matches. So, we're going to be losing Sarah and Haley Decision and Annalie Yurkevitz, and we're going to have some adjustments to make, but I think the future looks bright. I'm not guaranteeing number 5. I'm not saying
we'll
that.
Have you in the preseason for that.
Yeah, no. I won't. I would never say that. We got so much work to do, but I think we've got some really good players coming up with the right attitudes and the right work ethic, and that want their chance to come up and try to contribute.
Emily, as your coach was talking about how much work this takes, having gone through it this year and last year, and you mentioned even 8th grade coming up, but would it feel different with the girls who are in your grade or who are underclassmen to go through it in the future? How do you, after having so much success as a young player, how is it different as you age through high school?
Well, I think that a lot of people from my grade play volleyball, and some of my closest friends started this year too. And I think my senior year, I think the people from my grade who do play with me, I think we're all going to really want to win it, because it's we're such a close team, and we've been playing together since 7th grade, so it's going to mean so much more when it's our last year together, and after 6 years, and it's just going to mean so much our senior year if we win it. So,
Emily, have you thought at all about, has it sunken in yet that, all the time playing together as sisters is kind of at an end? Have you had to kind of, I guess for both of you, have you guys kind of emotionally or mentally kind of come to grips with that yet, or will it not start to get normal until summer and preseason and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it probably won't come till preseason next year, because it just hasn't sunken in yet. But when she had her last home game, we were we looked at each other and we just realized all of a sudden this is our last home game playing together, and then states were this is our last game playing together. So
I've been trying to drop hints for her to come play college with me, but I think by the time she's a senior, she'll be a little out of my league. So,
all right. Well, that is actually going to wrap up the segment for us. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Emily from Frontier Volleyball for having us. Really appreciate you guys coming down. And we're going to take another break. When we return, Tom, Jack, and I will take a look at the final, and I can't underline this enough, very unofficial Dagenet Award watch for football. We'll talk about some rankings and wrap things up for the week. And we'll be right back after we pay some bills. All right, we are back for our final segment on High School Sports Saturday on Sports Radio 105.5 WEEI. Jim Pignatiello, joined by Tom King and Jack Flagler. We're all from MassLive.com, and we're going to wrap up some football here with the updated final Dagenet Award Watch and the final top 10 rankings. Both things can be found in print on MassLive.com, but we want to kind of give you a little taste of it, and also kind of a sense of like biggest surprises now that we can actually kind of look back on the season. Tom, let's take a look at the Dagenet. Want to kind of emphasize again that you and I and Jack have nothing to do with kind of the actual award, but
no vote, not yet.
No vote.
Not yet.
Working on it.
Working on it.
But kind of all throughout the season, we've been kind of updating and taking a sense of kind of who the top players are, who's having the best season, and we ended up with Central quarterback Cody Williams, who's been mentioned many times on this program.
Who's he? What team does he play for?
Going wire to wire as the number one spot, and it really does kind of feel like when you look at seasons and who's had special years and which teams have had special years, that he's pretty much kind of head and shoulders above everyone else. There's been we'll get to them, a lot of great years, but it feels like Cody's had kind of the year. I
mean, it felt like he could have won it last year. He had a great year last year, and then coming in. He'd already committed to Monmouth, and he comes in and he's just improved his game even from last year with the ability to run the ball. His arm strength, I thought, was much improved this year.
Definitely.
The ability to throw on the move. He just got better in all aspects.
I appreciated his improvement of the Tom Brady fist pump. That was big because he definitely has that in his arsenal.
That. Yeah,
goes well with the number 12. But when you look at that team and kind of how organized they are, we talked a lot about this, about the way that they can do things like the 2-minute drill, the drive, even against the St. John Shrewsbury game. Those are the things you don't see every week underneath the lights on Friday night, at least in Western Mass. And that team was able to do it because of Cody, his mental game, his physical game, the fact that he can stay calm under that pressure, and has the leadership ability as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. His physical attributes are great, but he knows the game so well. Just talking to him after the game and the things he sees on the field, the adjustments he's able to make at the line of scrimmage are impressive as well. But it's just, we don't see great quarterbacks in Western Mass like him all the time. We have some quarterbacks who throw for a lot of yards. Usually it's in that spread option where they're just, kind of dinking and dunking it down the field. Not that those aren't great quarterbacks and they're accurate, but with the arm strength, he can hit all the throws. I mean, looking back in recent history, it's hard to find one as good as Cody has been.
And it'll be really interesting to see how the career at Monmouth takes off and that sort of thing following him after here, to see, does his running game translate, or does he become more of a straight pocket guy because of the speed of the defense? Yeah. Does he get a shot early on? Does it take a while to get going there? It'll be interesting. The thing that really jumps out at me otherwise though is how many running backs have had really great seasons for really good teams in Western Mass this year.
Yeah.
The list is unbelievable, Tom. Some of these guys, some of these guys have numbers that are good enough to be winners. Some of these guys have had seasons that are good enough where they would have been the runaway in other seasons. Mm-hmm. And they're, TJ Fitzel, who's third, Malik Renner, who went into, Turkey Day, around the school record in rushing. I mean, he's seventh. Max Chapuris, who has been so under quote unquote underrated and undercovered because there's been so much. And we haven't even talked about the number 2 guy on the list, Mad
Pinto, a sophomore who's, threatened school rushing record for touchdowns, leads the region in rushing yards and touchdowns. And like you said, there's so many great running backs who've had some great seasons. And oddly enough, it seems like the second half of the year has been, bananas, guys running for 200 plus, 300 plus, 4 or 5 TD games. It's like, video game stats these guys are putting up.
I can't quite put my finger on what it is either. Like, Renner had 2 kind of mediocre games. He didn't get a ton of touches against Wacona and Longmeadow. And then he's breaking off 200-yard games. He had like 435 in 2 games against an Agawam team that was undefeated until the tournament. Like, these performances where, he's obviously great and the offense is good and everything, but those are games where you see like once in a career, and these guys are having them week in and week out. And I really can't, I don't know if the defenses are relatively down this year, or if it's a thing where there's enough offensive weapons or teams aren't keen on one guy, or what it is, but it's really, the numbers are, you almost wonder, like, if I wasn't involved in MassLive, I'd wonder if our record keeping was very good. But I know that it is, and it's really been incredible.
I think as you mentioned, it seems like there aren't as many strong defenses as there have been in the past. I think a lot of that has to do with there's been some veteran offensive lines, especially in Division II and Division IV, a lot of seniors on some of these teams where the guys are running for a lot of yards. And I definitely think as the season wore on, the coaches started to figure out who their go-to guy was and really called their number. I mean, a few of these guys early in the season, 8, 9, 10 carries you see in some of the early season games. And then you get down to, the ones that matter, the playoff implication games, and they're getting, 18 or 20 carries. And I think that has had a big impact on some of these rushing totals they've put up.
But not every, running back can go from 8 or 9 carries and putting up, 8 or 9 yards per, and then, get a workload of 20 and keep that average or even do better. So I think that speaks to, the workhorses that these guys are to go out and take 20 carries, put up 200 yards. You don't just translate that from, 8 for 80 earlier in the year. So, to increase the workload and still be the star guy and put up the numbers that these running backs have, it's really impressive.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive thing about all these guys we mentioned. I mean, Fitzel, we didn't even mention Lou Burrell, Shapuris, Magic Pinto. They're all averaging like 10 to 12 yards per carry. Right. So it's not like they're just getting, they're just pounding it every time down and they're getting the ball and going 3 or 4 yards. I mean, they're really home run hitters, guys who can make some big plays with their feet.
We've had a couple of nice seasons by wide receivers, 2 guys that were in your top 5. Juwan Williams from Central, who was the number 1 target for Cody Williams, but not the only one. They had a number of good guys.
A lot of great wide receivers. Tough to pick up from them. Absolutely.
And then Justin White from Holyoke, who is just an unbelievable athlete. And we talked about Davon Jones. Nobody is Davon Jones, but Justin White's athleticism has been something to behold in some of these games as well.
What impresses me most about Justin White is everybody knows he's their go-to wide receiver. Well, like you mentioned with Central, they have 3 or 4 guys, 5 guys, 6 guys they can spread it around to. When you're looking at Holyoke, I mean, they spread around too, but you know that they're trying to go to. He's their 1 and 1A target every time they're throwing the ball. Teams are doubling him. They're having a safety over the top, helping, and he's still coming up. I mean, still the leading receiver in Western Mass.
That is really impressive, and you can do some things as a coach. Putting him in motion, getting him on some different spots on the field. But if a defense is going to key in on him, a defense is going to key in on him. So he's had an incredible year, and I think his numbers in some ways speak to the performance of Andrew Peltier at quarterback as well, who's improved over the course of the year. You get
just
a great
sophomore too.
Yeah, you get a great wide receiver, but a sophomore quarterback. You really got to have some improvement from the young guy behind center to use those talents of Justin there in Holyoke. So I think he has shown that, and both of those guys have had good years despite a down year for Holyoke.
All right, we have a few minutes left, so let's move on to the final top 10 rankings that we put out as well, Tom. Number 1, no surprise, Central. We'll move on.
Right.
Number 2, Westfield. Bill Moore's last year as the coach. They've had some special seasons there. Nice to see Westfield give Bill Moore another special year, undefeated in the regular season except for a late loss to Central, and then they lost again to the Golden Eagles in the tournament. But, I mean, just an incredible season, a terrific team, and I think a really deserving number 2 ranking to finish out the season.
And I think it's a great team to send Bill Moore out. It seems typical of the way he's coached there. They're the ground and pound. They have such a big offensive line. They've been tough all year. He always preaches, mental toughness, character. They had that huge come from behind win over East Long Meadow.
Right.
Just it seems like a typical Bill Moore team and a good team to send him out.
The number 3 team is Wacona. We mentioned them earlier, undefeated through the Western Mass tournament until falling in the state semifinals. They had hoped to play a Thanksgiving Day game, but that didn't work out. You can read more about that on MassLive.com as well. And number 4 is Agawam. The turnaround, the quick turnaround that Coach Rick Jewell has put together to get them to an 0-for season in 2011 and now be the number 4 team. Pretty impressive stuff.
Extremely impressive, especially just a culture in these last, decade or so, just a losing football program, and to turn it around so quickly and so dramatically, to have an undefeated regular season. And we've talked enough about the first MIA playoff berth and just a really, really quick turnaround and a good coaching job. Berkshire County gets 2 teams in the top 5 with Hoosick Valley going 9-2, lost to Wacona, I believe. Yep, 8-7, of course. Yep, and then of course in the state semifinals as well, a team that we really kind of got to really appreciate the kind of defense that they played.
Sure, yeah. And when you think about kind of quintessential Berkshire County football, they were that team this year. It was a fun thing, kind of maybe like the way Greylock has been in the last few years, where they were the tough defense and they've been rolling through. It felt like Hoosick took on that mantle. And then rounding out the top 10 was East Longmeadow, a team that had some unbelievable games this year, and of course we mentioned Magic Pinto. A fun team to watch. Absolutely. Longmeadow, Westside, Northampton, and South Hadley. 2 teams that have a lot of talent. They've got guys high up on that Dagenais watch list, and guys, the teams that were fun to watch, teams that were certainly deserving. Good job on the top 10, Tom. Nice work.
Take your hate mail at tking
at MassLive.com. We'll do it. Yeah, sure. tking at MassLive.com. The interesting thing to me was the turnarounds that both Northampton and South Hadley had to get those late rankings. Northampton suffered 2 early losses. South Hadley really struggled early on and turned it around to make the playoffs. So nice coaching jobs there
Absolutely.
by Pat Slajewski and Eric Scammons to kind of keep guys on board and get into the tournament the way that they did.
Yeah, no surprise that those running backs for those two teams did really well late to turn those seasons around as well.
A huge part of that. And like we said, they were not desperate, but they had to kind of go with their A game. They couldn't rest anymore. They needed to win right away. And next week we're going to talk about we'll talk a little bit about the state championship games. We still have some level of interest in that and want to kind of keep that on the radar. And we'll start to really move into winter sports season. We've got previews that we're working on. That's what most of our focus is right now in the office. We're still recapping fall stuff, but that's the big thing. We'll also we'll start to kind of move forward towards that. We'll talk about some of the bigger storylines, the better teams, kind of the things to expect. And we will be back next Saturday here on High School Sports Saturday on Sports Radio 105.5 WEEI. Follow MassLive High School coverage at MassLive HS. Tom King at by Thomas King. Jack Flagler at Jack Flagler. And me, Jim Pignatiello at J Pignatiello. Finally, big thanks to everyone at WEEI Springfield here. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. And we will see you next Saturday.